Welcome to this week's Q&A. We've got a question today from one of our viewers in San Francisco, and this person's asked us, what happens to the money that I'm losing by keeping my investment property? Now, what this man's referring to is the cash flow impact that's occurred as interest rates have increased. So, further in the question, he says, look, it was costing me nothing to maintain these investment properties, but now that interest rates have gone up so much, it's actually costing me money every month when I make mortgage repayments, which are above and beyond the income I receive from my rentals. So, look, great question. And the interesting thing about this, if I look back over the past few decades, I mean, anyone living in Australia or elsewhere around the world but buying property in Australia would recognise that, let's say you're buying an asset for $1 million, that's going to cost you something. Just like when you go and buy a car, for $200,000, you don't expect to just walk into a showroom, somebody gives you a finance contract, you run away and drive it, and it costs you nothing. So in a similar vein, I suppose we've been sort of lulled into a sense of well-being, because as rates dropped to virtually zero over the last few years, the payments that we've had to make to support the debt around these investment properties has dropped to a minimal level, and in most instances these properties were quite heavily positively geared, so the income that we were receiving was far greater than the expenses we were paying. Now it's sort of coming back to a situation that's been more normalised over say the last decade or more, and this question is a good one, but it needs to be, I suppose, looked at in the right light. And that is that currently, we're experiencing the situation where you're not actually losing money as such, but you're paying more, because when you look at a win-loss situation, you have to also look at what capital gains are occurring to your asset whilst you're funding its existence, as it were. So from an overall viewpoint, it's like if you own shares, it's not just the share price, it's the dividends that you receive, and then you look at what the real outcome is. But to answer this question from a cash flow viewpoint, what I want to bring out is that Australia has some unique attributes to its tax code, and a couple of those are Division 43 and Division 40 of the Income Tax Assessment Act, which are the depreciation allowances. So if you're owning an investment property, so it's an asset that's creating an income, you can offset expenses, but you can also offset these non-cash items. So if you buy a new property and it costs $1 million to build, you can deduct that building cost at 2.5% per annum for 40 years. So $25,000 a year you can offset from that. And then you look at your fixtures and fittings and inclusions, and if you get a quantity surveyor's report, you can actually have those itemized. They all have various different half-lives, and you can also deduct those against your income. So they are non-cash items, non-cash expenses in inverted commas, and that's something that you can store up. So if you're running this investment property that's producing income but at a cash flow loss, you can store up those tax credits for the future. And you can utilize those if you then repatriate back to Australia, get a job there, and have personal exertion income. You can use those accrued losses to offset against that, or against potentially future capital gains tax if you have to liquidate an asset in the future. So there are different things that you might be able to achieve with that. And when I spoke to this person, he actually wasn't aware of that. So I thought, I thought this money was, we were just losing this, and there was no capacity to make any sort of recoupment of some of these perceived losses. But there in fact are. So look, if you find this of interest, please subscribe to our YouTube channel and click like. And if you need some assistance with your own personal situation, don't hesitate to reach out. Email us, call us, WhatsApp us. We'll have somebody contact you and see if we can't help you with your own personal set of circumstances. I'm Andrew Unterweger, and I'll see you at next week's Q&A.